What's up guys, I'm out here to make a video about the 10 things I hate about my SV650. We're going to start from 10 and go down to 1 being the thing I hate the most. So number 10 is the kickstand. The kickstand doesn't lean forward that much, so it is easy to retract by accident. If I were to just push the bike forward a little bit, you can see it already. Basically, if I push the bike forward at all, or it's on a downhill slope, the kickstand wants to just close right back up because it doesn't have that much of an angle and doesn't really lock into place. So that can be pretty sketchy. So something you want to definitely watch out for on your SV650. Number 9, the headlight brightness, which obviously out here in the day you can't tell. But you know, part of it having that old retro looking headlight is it's not the brightest. It does all right, and then the high beam on it as well isn't that bright either. So it's just a single bulb up in there, and it could definitely be brighter. So I could either swap out the bulb to a brighter bulb. I might do that. Probably I'll do that. The other option is just to like install a new headlight assembly, which I'm not really looking to do. More money. The 8th thing I hate about my SV650 is the seat. The seat on this thing is decent for anything under like 80-mile rides. Since it's hot out here, it feels really soft. But after about 100 miles or so, your butt starts to definitely hurt on this thing. You can see the angle that the seat has. It does okay, but I would definitely want to replace it or refoam it, something like that. The 7th thing I hate about my SV650 is the tire wear. So on every bike I've owned before this, except for this one, the last bit of chicken strip I would have would be on the front. But on this bike, for some reason, you run out of chicken strip, or you use more of the front tire, in other words, than the rear tire. So as you can see back here, you saw what the chicken strip looked like up there, but there's a fairly big one on the back. So it's, I don't know, it makes you feel like you can't lean as much because you're gonna run out of front tire before you run out of rear tire. And on all the other bikes I've owned, it was the other way around. You'd use all the rear up and then the front, which would feel better. Because you know the front tire's smaller, and having the front go is, you can't really do anything about it in the middle of the corner, while the rear is, you know, possible chance. The 6th thing I hate about my SV650 is filling the gas tank. On this bike, the gas tank is really high in the center, so I don't know if you can make that out on here, but you basically, you know, I can touch the tank right there, the bottom of the tank. So when you take the nozzle to stick the nozzle in, you can't stick it in very far. You have to, and when you're filling up with full pressure on the gas, it'll like splash everywhere off of that little bit. So you have to like angle it in the back to get it to like not splash as much, and it's just more of a pain in the butt to fill up the gas on this bike than any of the other bikes that I've owned, which is many. The 5th thing I dislike about my SV650 is the wind. Now I know that's just a part of this thing being the naked model and not having any wind protection, but you know, as you can see from the front here, there's basically nothing. This piece right here is all for looks. It doesn't do a thing. So eventually getting a new piece to go here, maybe a windscreen that attaches to the handlebars, something to give you some real wind protection, because you know, I've owned 3600s, and those are, you know, the wind, they don't block you fully from the wind, but the wind will hit you, you know, at about the chest, and then you can like tuck, and then the wind won't hit you. On this, the wind is just hitting you everywhere. You have to like lean into it, and you can't really hide from it at all, which, you know, is what it is. So you can see here, this is like what it looked like from back here, and it's just get annihilated by the wind. So the 4th thing I hate about my SV650 is the brakes. The front brakes They're, you know, adequate, they do the job, but by no means are they excellent compared to, I mean, obviously they're just outdated. They're not radial calibers or radial master cylinder, which is fine, but they just don't have much feel, and you have to, you know, if you're really trying to stop, you got to really grab them extremely hard. Now, I'm sure you could remedy some of that with some new pads, some new fluid, you know, bleed the brakes. You know, I'm sure it can be helped, but in general, it just feels like there's no feel. It just feels like it's been described, I've read, as like just two 2x4s clamping the rotor, which is a fairly accurate description. So you can see this is what the up here looks like. They do the job, they're fine, but they're not excellent or good by any means. And the rear brake's fine. I mean, you know, the rear brake's only 10% of the braking power, so I pretty much only use it when I'm going slow anyways. The third thing I hate about my SV650 is at low RPMs. So on this bike, they basically have a fueling issue. So anywhere under 3,000 RPMs, down here, obviously, it's just really, basically the fueling issue is that until 3,000 RPMs, it doesn't add more fuel. It's just using the same fuel that it would be using to idle with. So once you get above 3,000, it's fine. It'll you know, rev good, and it's not very lumpy, or you know, it responds good. Anywhere below it, it's super lumpy. It doesn't respond good. It doesn't feel like it has any power. It feels like the engine's knocking. So that is something that can be fixed. I just haven't done it yet. But this thing being a V-twin and having so much torque, you know, you think you would be able to like roll into it in the low RPMs, or you know, hang in third and let it go down and then use, you know, throttle out of it. But instead you really want to downshift, or just make it so you don't end up below 3,000 RPMs, because it just does not feel happy. But once again, that is totally something that can be fixed by adjusting this, I think it's like I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but it's this sensor, and you adjust it and you put the bike in a diagnostic mode, and you can change the fueling to kick in at like 1,400 as opposed to like 3,000 from the factory. So that's definitely something I'm going to be doing. Now, number two, the thing I hate the second most on this bike, as most people do, is the suspension. It's just extremely underdamped. The front forks, as far as like the spring rate goes, it's okay. You know, it's fairly stiff, but not too stiff. It's fine, but it just doesn't have the dampening to cope with it. You can adjust this suspension in one way, the preload up here. There's one there and there's one there, and you go by one there and one there, and you go by the notches on that. So I actually just turned mine out to 4 notches. So that did help. You know, getting rid of the preload will reduce the spring rate, which in turn means you need less dampening for it. The rear shock is basically the same situation. It's not super adjustable. I think it only has preload adjustment as well, / height adjustment. I'm not positive on that. But the suspension on this bike can be pretty easily remedied, actually. You can swap in a bunch of different forks from GSXR models, Gixxer models, or even Kawasaki like ZX-10R rear shocks will go in there, all that kind of stuff. And then on the front, you can change the fluid. You know, you can install cartridges, emulators, you can do all kinds of different stuff. I'll probably just end up changing the fluid on the front for now and making it work as good as possible. Maybe change the rear shock, because a used, you know, one of those bikes shocks for the rear is pretty cheap, like 50 bucks, 75 bucks or less. So that would definitely help. And then the number one thing I hate about my SV650, that's why we've been hanging out on this side the whole time, is that it's been crashed. So if we come over here, you know, you can see a little bit of scrapes there. Up here on the bar, got my handlebar grip, and the reason I didn't replace these is because it's a heated grip system and I don't want to have to buy a new one. The worst part is going to be right here. The gas tank, as you can see, is super dented, which I actually bought it with this dent and going down, but I've actually low-sided again, or low-sided on it after that one, and it added these scratches, tore up the radiator guard we have here. I have a new radiator to go on. Got up here on the front fender, got the forks a smidge. Got back here, we have a big gash in the rear cowl, some scratches, and some scratches on the handle back here. And the funniest, well, I guess, you know, contextually funny, is that I had just put an exhaust on. This is a Delcovic 9-inch, but I had just put a 14-inch one on. It had been on there for like a week or two, and I low-sided on this right side, and it pretty much destroyed that exhaust. Obviously, like, it still worked and would have been fine, but it looked terrible. So after that, I actually wanted it to be a little louder, so I went with the Delcovic 9-inch. So it's been low-sided on this side. I bought it having it been low-sided on this side, which I was okay with, but then after doing it yourself, kind of like breaks your heart the way you feel about the bike a little bit, you know. But I don't know, I'm falling back into it, and it's alright. I had 2 mirrors up there. Obviously, it bent these bars. These are the stock bars, and they're bent. I have new bars to go on, but I have to cut off some length on the ends and drill the holes for the control pods. So that's the number one thing I hate about my SV650, is the fact that it's been crashed. Oh, I left out. There's this right here, a little scratch on the cover over here, crankcase cover, and then so this actually was here when I bought it. This was broken, and this had been broken, but there was actually like a square welded onto here, so it had a knob, but I broke that off, and this was already like this, so it was whatever. So yeah, that's all the damage to the right side on this thing, and what I hate the most about it. So feel free to like, comment, subscribe, guys. I'm gonna make a 10 things I love about this bike, which I do love a lot about it, and we'll go from there. I'm gonna make some more bike videos. I have a lot of other bikes I can make videos on, as well as cars. I don't have any cars right now, but I'm gonna be buying something in the future and make some videos on that, and you know, go from there. So this is my SV650.